tone in the belly, relaxed shoulders going down and back. You'll feel the shoulder blades gently pulling together towards the spine. And then the crown of the head reaching. So imagine you can make your neck longer or taller. I'll just hold this for a few moments. You can close down the eyes, set to your intention. And then you can open your eyes, and we'll start with hands on the knees and taking circles. Loosening up through the low back, through the hips. You can get your shoulders a little more involved by letting them move and rotate as you do. And you can go both directions. And then just come on back up to center. And start to roll the shoulders. Again, both directions. And then we'll relax the shoulders down. Fingertips out to the side, side bending to either side. You can decide how long you stay and when you intuitively know that you want to go to the other side. Imagine that you're rolling over a barrel, so you want to really stretch the upper side of the ribs. And taking at least a big full breath when you're leaning over to the side so you can open up a little farther. And we'll just continue to go back and forth. Finish the cycle that you're on. And we'll come back upright. Switch your feet if they were crossed. And then bring your arms up into like a cactus shape or cowboy arrest. And you're going to just be really gentle with this to start. You're going to go to the one side, back to center, and to the other. So keep the firmness in the belly. And then start to use the muscles of the side waist to help you rotate a bit farther. It'll be easier if you twist on the exhale and come back to center on the inhale. Let me do a few more. Meeting back at center. You can release your hands down, get them behind your back, roll the shoulders, interlace the fingers, and then squeeze shoulder blades, elbows, and palms together. And then if you've got even more room, lift your hands up and away from your back. Nice chest expander. Hold and deepen the breath. And then we'll release and repeat that on the front side of the body. So interlacing the hands, taking them out and away. Round through the upper back, tuck your chin, press the palms out. And then inhale, rise up, arms up overhead. Really long straight arms, press the palms towards the ceiling. And then hold. Deepen the breath. And then we'll release the hands down. Just roll the shoulders a couple times. And then we'll move into our tabletop position, so hands and knees. Extra padding underneath the knees if you need it. So always a little firmness to the belly as you come into your tabletop. If you're like me and you're hypermobile, you're going to need to have a bit bigger of a bend through the elbows so that the arms are straight and strong. Toes can be tucked or untucked. We're going to move through our spinal flossing or spinal flow. And start to move and articulate the spine in a way that feels really good for you this morning. You can add some hip sways. You can add rocking forward and back. A little twisting action. You might close your eyes and move the spine. We'll be here for about a minute. So continue to move the spine, finding new ways to move, perhaps staying and just holding a couple shapes and then creating patterns. Want to really get the spine to roll and move freer. So finish up the pattern that you've created. And we're going to meet in child's pose. So we're going to take a really wide child's pose to start. Big toes can touch. Take the knees as wide as you can tolerate first thing this morning. Send your hips back and then stretch your arms out nice and long. Forehead will come down onto something. As you hold in your child's pose, continue to move around. So adjust the knees, maybe wider, perhaps you have to go narrower. Lifting and lowering, stretching the arms out super long, and then finding some spaces of time where you're just holding the shape, noticing the sensations, and then make another shift or change, and then hold again. From whichever version of child's pose you're in, you're going to rise back up into tabletop. You're going to tuck the toes and lift to down dog. Now same thing with child's pose and down dog, you're going to move around. You're going to find moments where you can hold still, and then you're going to change the sensations and then you'll hold again. So you want to have multiple experiences in the same posture. So for down dog, maybe you start with legs really wide or feet wide, strong bend in the knees, and then work towards a straighter leg. Maybe you can change the distance between your hands and your feet, so going farther apart or narrower. And then you're just going to explore. So take your time. Now continue to hold whatever version of down dog you're doing, and just know that you're building endurance and strength. So we're got lots of weight going down through the wrists, lots of length and stretch to the back of the body. And if at any time you need to take a break, just let your knees come down and then rise back up. And we'll try to hold this a little bit longer. And then from here, you're going to walk your hands back to your feet. So you're going to the back of your mat into a forward fold. Come off of your wrists. So maybe grab opposite elbows and let yourself hang, or alternatively, rotate the wrists and let some of the tension come out. Same thing in your forward fold. Try to find different experiences. So bent knees, straight legs. Maybe one knee is bent, the other isn't. Rocking the hips, changing your arms, whether they're down or whether they're grabbing elbows. And we'll stay here for a little bit more time. And we're going to go into a strength building flow. It's going to be nice and slow and you'll be able to modify a ton. So from your forward fold, you're going to walk your hands back out to down dog. And you want to have quite a bit of distance between your hands and your feet so you can make the transition into plank really easy. And the first time you'll have to maybe make an adjustment. So you're going to come forward into a plank, shoulders over wrists, long straight line for the rest of the body. Press the heels back, the crown of the head forward. And then press down through the finger pads too. So don't take all the weight into the heel of your hand. And then you're just going to start to flow back and forth. So down dog to plank. And you're going to keep this going. So choose a breath pattern that makes sense. It might be an inhale forward and exhale back. And you're trying to slow the breath down so you can make the transition nice and slow and even. Now, if it gets to be too strong or too much, you're going to let your knees come down and you can go from down dog to plank on your knees. Or you could do child's pose, plank on your knees, child's pose. Couple more cycles, remembering that you've got options to make it a little smoother or a little easier. You might be feeling lots of pressure down through the wrists. Know that we're going to come off them really soon. The next time you arrive back in either child's pose or down dog, just stay there. And then if you're in child's pose, stay. If you're in down dog, walk back to a forward fold and grab opposite elbows, hang and ragdoll. If you're in the forward fold, the hands come out in front and you're going to let your knees come down to the mat. And you'll find your way into child's pose. So untuck the toes, big toes to touch, knees go wide. And then you can decide either your arms go forward or back or between the legs. But we want to be able to rest and get weight off the wrists in child's pose. take your time moving up again into tabletop. And you're just going to be on fingertips, so no palms down, just the fingertips. And you're going to just stay here for a few moments. Starting to build up strength in the fingers. You can modify by how much weight you let go forward over the fingertips. And then we're going to let the weight shift back so that you can bring the back of your hand to the floor so that your palm is facing up. And you'll get weight down through the wrists. And then you'll increase the weight by letting your weight shift forward. And you're just going to go to where it feels good. And then you'll stop. And you might need to come in and out of it a few times. So the wrist joint being, of course, quite a vulnerable joint. If we do have a fall, we tend to put our hand out and we can come down onto our wrist. So fractures of the wrist are quite common. And by increasing our ability to keep weight bearing on the wrist, they'll get stronger. The bones will become denser. And so even though this can be uncomfortable sometimes, the sensation, know that you're building stronger bones and it could save you in the future. So we're going to let the weight shift back and we're going to come off, bring the palms back down onto the mat, and you're going to step your left foot forward. So coming into a low lunge, once your left foot is stepped forward, you can adjust your back knee, perhaps taking it a little farther back, and you can either tuck or untuck the back toes. So again, we're going to come up off the wrist by bringing the hands to the forward knee, and you're going to decide where you're going to be comfortable. So maybe more upright, or perhaps you like the sensation of being a little lower and scooping forward. Whichever one you choose, you're going to keep the belly toned, and you're going to keep the sensation of having a tall spine, crown of the head reaching up. Now, if it's available and you feel like you have the stability to bring your hands off your knee, we're going to bring them back up into cactus arms. So 90-degree angles, again, keep the firmness in the belly, and you're going to go back into the twisting action that we did when we were seated. So nice and controlled, exhaling to twist one way, inhaling to center, exhaling the opposite way. You'll notice, of course, that one way is way easier. And so you're going to be gentler on yourself when you go to the harder side. We'll do some more rotations. And we'll meet back at center. Bringing your hands down to the mat. You're going to keep your right hand down and you're going to reach your left arm up. If the left arm doesn't want to go up, it could go to hip instead. And then you'll float the left hand down and reach the right arm up. And we're going to just continue with this pattern. So you're going to go at your own pace. Switching arms, opening up the opposite direction. You may even want to close your eyes and just get into the rhythm of the movement. Finishing the cycle that you're on, we'll come back, hands to the floor, framing the front foot. And now you're going to move into your half Hanuman. So the hips glide back, front leg straightens. Your hands may have to slide with you, and if you've got hands on blocks, they'll slide with you as well. And now you're just going to place your hands in a space where you can come back and forward with ease. So going from a straight leg to a bent knee. And again, you may wish to close your eyes and go back to the idea of exploring the shapes. You might want to rotate your hips a little side to side as you come forward and back. See if you can find a new muscle to target, a different sensation. And we'll just stay here for a few more moments, easing our way back and forth. We're going to meet back in our low lunge. Hands come to the floor, step the left foot back, and switch sides. Right foot forward. Get the perfect placement, adjust your back knee. And when you feel stable, rise up. Again, you want to really make sure we stay connected with the core here. So that scooping and lifting action of the belly. And then when you feel stable, you may have to have some engagement of the legs to hold you here a bit easier. We'll come into the cactus arms. So remembering that the exhale, it's easier to do the rotation. We're going to be going from side to center to the opposite direction. So it's inhale to center, exhale to twist. Finish the cycle that you're on. Come back to center. Hands will come back down to the floor. And moving into our straight arm rotation. So one hand stays down, the other opens up. And you repeat on the other side. Allowing yourself to flow back and forth. Finish the cycle you're on. Come back to center. Hands come back a little bit farther so you can start to bend and straighten the forward leg. Just easing your way back and forth. Rocking the hips from side to side. Maybe staying a little longer in one stretch or the other. Perhaps closing the eyes. Finish the cycle you're on. Come back into your low lunge. We'll plant the hands, step the right foot back, tabletop. Let your hips move side to side. And then we're going to be coming down into our rolling cobras from the belly. So when you're ready, come forward into plank on your knees. Keep the firmness in your belly as you lower to the ground. Roll the shoulders. Bring your hands back a little farther. Engage through the legs, so stretch them out long behind. Root down to the tops of the feet, and then start your action. So you're going to inhale to rise up, and exhale to float down. You can let your head be the last thing to lift, and the last thing to go down. Finish the last cycle and see if you can come up into your last back bend and hold. Then release, and you're going to press into knees and hands to go back up to plank on the knees. And a nice slow glide back to child's pose. Choose the variation that works best for you. And we're going to take slow, deep breaths, moving into the low back to ease that tension that might have come in from your work. So one more strength building flow to work through with modifications. You're going to be on your forearms this time. So come on up, plant your forearms, and they can either be parallel like railroad tracks, or you could have your thumbs touching with your elbows just slightly wider. You're going to have firmness through the belly, and you can stay on your knees or you can come up into your full dolphin plank. Whichever one you're in, you're going to let your weight shift forward and back. And you can do this with the knees down. It'll be smaller. But you're going to keep the firmness in the belly, whichever version you're in, and you're going to try to link your breath. So again, it might be an inhale forward and exhale back. If you need to rest, you rest. If your knees are lifted, let them come down. Send your hips back and keep your forearms down. Adjust your knees underneath your hips and then come into a version of puppy pose. So you're going to stretch your chest down. You can walk your arms out longer and keep your hips over your knees. Rise up and make your way back into down dog. From downward facing dog, you're going to come into your pigeon pose on the right. So you can either lift your right leg for three-legged dog, or you can bring your right knee forward, bring it to the outside of the right wrist, lower your back leg down, inching your back leg back long and straight. You may need to have a prop underneath the right sit bone. And then you can just stay on your hands for a few moments so that you can level off the hips, make adjustments to the angle of your front leg. And then once you've found comfort, you can lower the rest of the way down. You can either come onto forearms or you can come all the way down onto your chest, and we'll stay here. So nice slow deep breaths. So even though you're holding the shape, there's no reason to just have the same sensation the whole time. You may as well explore and discover something new. So you may want to rock your hips every once in a while. You may want to come back up onto your hands. You may want to see if you can go lower. You may want to adjust your prop, either taking it out or adding more. You may need to come up and adjust the angle of your front leg. Maybe you want to go a little bit more towards parallel. Readjust, and then come back down. So we don't want to become stagnant in our practice. We want to be always exploring and finding new ways to come into the same shape. So the shapes are the shapes. They're the same, but your experience doesn't have to be. So we're going to continue to take slow deep breaths, explore the shape of your pigeon on the right. So if you have lowered down, I'd like you to come back up onto your hands. And if you have a prop onto the right side, you're going to slide it out. So you can kind of sit fully on your right sit bone. And then you're going to swing your back leg all the way forward and cross your knees. So you're going to be coming into your shoelace pose. You might need to lift your hips a few times or add props. We want to have the knees stacked on top of each other. Hopefully you can see that. And the heels can either pull back towards the hips, or you'll, I can't get my body to move, you'll look more like this, a little bit smaller, or the legs go more out to the side, and this is where you get that shoelace vision. Again, the most important part that you can think about is the even weight down through your sit bones. So if you're really off to one side, you're going to try to work to create evenness. And that might be created by having one slightly lifted than the other. But we want even weight going down and the knees close to stacked. If this isn't a possibility, it's the bottom leg that would be straight. So the bottom leg straightens and you just work with the top leg. So we're moving into our Yin Postures. So these ones are held a little longer. Stillness is encouraged. However, there's lots of opportunity to stay in the same shape, the same pose, and have some movement. So we're working primarily with the hips and the legs. So if you need to move the upper body around a bit more to just, maybe it's really hard for you to stay still, or maybe there's tension building up, then feel free to move the upper body. You can rotate shoulders, you can change your arm variation, and you're still in the pose. The bulk of the sensations are in the legs. That's what we're working on, and we're trying to create this change by staying longer in the shape. So we're here for a little bit longer. Choose a variation that works for you. If you need more, of course, you can lean forward. So wherever you found yourself, we're going to rise up and you're going to unravel your legs and we're going to stretch them out in front. You can move around a little bit and then we'll come into a forward fold. So you can go forward with a straight back or a slightly rounded back. As long as you feel the bulk of the sensation through the backs of the legs, you're in the pose. Come forward as far as you can. Nice, slow, deep breaths. And try to keep the sensations in the legs. So if you got a lot of sensation in your upper back, you're going to come more upright, have a stronger, straighter spine, and try to force the sensation into the legs. If it's just so much into the legs, you may need to bend the knees, and you might need to round a little bit more. So explore. Figure it out for yourself, and then opt to stay. Wherever you're at, we'll rise back up. You just take a moment at the top, and then you're going to swing your feet around, and you're going to come back either into table or down dog. And we'll do the other side. Now, once you've moved around a little bit, you're going to bring the left foot forward. Come on down into your pigeon pose. Again, modify, add props, move around, adjust, find just the right sensation. Stay for at least a little while up on your fingertips. You don't want to have your hips leaning to one side or the other. You want them nice and even. You might need to look behind you to see if your leg is straight and if you've sickled your foot. And then once you've got that nice and straight, we'll come on down. And you can stay down here. So if the sensations have become sort of stagnant for you, that just feels like it always feels, then move the hips, move the arms, make some changes, feel something different, at least for a few breaths. And then we'll rise back up onto the hands. If you've got a prop, you're going to take it out. You'll sit on the left sit bone and swing the back leg forward, crossing the legs. So again, coming into our shoelace pose, knowing that you have the option of the bottom leg being straight. We want even weight down to the sit bones, even if you have to add a little prop underneath one side. Knees on top of each other. Feet can either be pulled back towards the hips or more out in line with the edges of the mat. And then if you need more, forward fold. So when you're holding your Yin postures, a really soft, gentle Ujjayi breath works really well. A very slight constriction on the throat, the ocean wave sound in the back. But you can also use a Sukha Purvak breath that we did this morning if you were watching. And that is making your breath as quiet and as slow as possible. So no sound. It's done with effort, but always within comfort. So there's no strain or tension that comes from the technique. So you can use either of those when you're holding your Yin postures. If the Yin posture has a lot of sensation for you, the Ujjayi would be more appropriate because it's a breath technique that creates endurance. So if that's what you need to stay in the pose, then use Ujjayi. If you're quite comfortable in the shape, you're like maintaining your flexibility, then the Sukha Purvak is a really nice alternative. So we've got a bit more time here. If you've gone forward, you're going to rise up, pause at the top, and then unravel the legs out in front. Move around as much as you need to. If you want to add a prop under the sit bones or a rolled up blanket under the knees, you can do that. And then we're going to go forward. And again, choose whether you want to go forward with a straight back or if you want to have a softer, rounder approach. Either way, again, the bulk of the sensation through the back of the legs, and then modifying your approach to take the sensation out of the spine, just for today. We're going to start to rise up. So now you're going to swing your feet around into child's pose. And in your way there, you may want to go through a couple of rounds of cat and cow. And this time, if you could choose the narrow kneed version of child's pose. So knees all the way together, ankles touching, big toes touching, hips back to the heels, and arms can either go forward or back, your choice. Rising back up into tabletop, our last little pose here before we get to come onto our backs is our frog shape. So take your knees wide. You may have to turn sideways on your mat, and then turn the insides of your ankles down to the floor. So you're going to be on the inside edge of your knees and the inside edge of your ankles, and you're going to keep your knees in line with your hips as you continue to take your knees wider. So you've got a 90-degree angle from your ankle to your knee, and then from your knee to your hip. So big stretch for the insides of the thighs. My body does not like this pose at all, but that's why we're going to do it, because we have to do the things that are challenging. Otherwise, there's no growth. So once you get your knees wide enough that you feel sensation in the inner thighs, maybe through the hips, then you can decide if you want to come down lower. And when you come down lower, you can make a little bit of a rocking action forward and back. And just find where you can stay, and then you might find that once you're down lower, you can take the knees wider. You're going to keep a light firmness in the belly, and you're going to hold. Just a few more deep breaths. Try to find as much sensation of being relaxed in this pose as possible. If it's too intense for you to try to relax, then bring your knees closer together until you can, and we'll just spend a couple more breaths here. Notice where you're restricted. Maybe it's one side versus the other. You might be feeling this in the inner thighs. It could be in your low back. It could be in the sacrum. Just notice it, make adjustments, and we'll stay just for a couple more breaths. I found that the easiest way to get out of the pose is to bring the feet back together and then slowly let the hips glide back, walking your hands back. You might need to take a moment or two just to rest here, and then eventually pull the knees back towards each other and come back into your narrow-kneed child's pose. And again, you can choose arms forward or back. Rise back up into tabletop and swing your feet back out in front. Middle of your mat so that you have room to lie back. If you wanted to add a layer for Shavasana, you could have a blanket or a sweater or socks. And then I'll get you to come down onto your backs. You can start by pulling the knees into the chest, rocking side to side. And then just before we extend into Shavasana, legs are going to go up to the ceiling. Arms can go up to the side or up overhead. And you're just going to take some leg movement. So maybe it's opening up into straddle, perhaps treading water. Maybe you want to circle your bike. You might just want to let your legs float up above you, pointing and flexing the feet. And once you've worked out that last little bit of movement, you can let your knees to the chest, feet come to the floor, adjust your hips, lift and lower the hips, adjust the shoulders. Open up your arms nice and wide, open your legs wide, as if you're going to make a snow angel. Close down the eyes and we'll come into Shavasana. Now you can stay relaxed and still in your Shavasana, perhaps going back to that really nice, slow, quiet breath. So no sound on the inhale, no sound on the exhale. It's done with comfort but effort. So you're trying to make the breath longer, smoother, softer. There's no tension coming from the technique or from the effort. If you feel like you need or want to stay longer in Shavasana, I invite you to just stay and let my voice be a background. If you need to carry on with the rest of your day, you're going to either pull your knees into your chest and eventually come to your side fetal position, or knees to chest and then start to rock forward and back until you can arrive back at seated. And that's where we'll meet. Once you've arrived back at your comfortable seat, we'll bring our hands together into a mudra. And this is a mudra that resembles a lotus. So the heel of the hand comes together, the pinky fingers and the thumb, and your other 3 fingers are open. So it's like a bowl out in front of your heart. And you can just take a moment to sit nice and tall, close down the eyes, and think about anything that you need to receive today. So maybe that's energy or compassion, forgiveness, anything that you need or want. Imagine you could download it from the universe and have it arrive in your hands. Once you've downloaded what you need and or want, you're going to close your palms, coming into Anjali Mudra. Seal what you need really close into your heart. And then just take a moment to think about what that looks like. If you were to receive what you asked for, what would that look like today, in your day? How would it feel? Keeping that close to your heart. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. I hope I get to guide your practice again soon. Namaste. Have a great day.